So I started doing that a little bit more and planting more of certain things and less of others and whatnot. So there's all these different things that we can do, but when it comes down to it, if you go about it in the wrong direction, you're not going to be saving any money at all. You're going to be going backwards. Now, the argument is always, well, it's healthier, this, that, and the other, but we're not talking about that today, okay? We're talking about the simple cost of it.
Yeah. So I do want to take a small break to acknowledge that so we can put it in a box for this episode and then talk about the core tenets of the episode. And I'm going to have to ask Leonard. I think we pulled it down. There is a clip from many moons ago, years ago, different hair color, different hair length, look, different full body version of Batavia. Like this is some years back that you and I talked about how the garden can be healing. And it was in a moment where I was working through some grief and I was able to reflect back on kind of what the garden gave to me in that particular point in my life. And like I look at that and say, that's not what the garden is for everyone. And that's not what the garden is all the time for me. But that's important, right? So one year where I may end up, let's say $1,000. That's going to be the savings. Let's just use a round number. I saved $1,000 last year in my garden. And this year I end up saving 800. Like, is that a fail? Did the garden help me in other ways this year that can offset that? Like that's the piece that again, I'm going to put it in a box. I'm going to fight the urge to continue to come back to that because that's critically important to me. And I'm going to focus in on the actual dollars and cents of it because that's what we agreed to talk about. Leonard kicking and screaming. And that's all we really agreed to talk about. I think that
Well, hold on. Let's talk about that for a second.
if I do, you know what's going to
You're
happen.
going to cry?
Yeah.
No, don't cry. Don't cry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think, this is such a broad topic. It's really hard.
Mhm.
And I agree with you. We really do want to focus on like the actual dollar and cents of what's coming out of the garden. But if we get a little creative here, just a little creative, and we say, okay, we're spending time in the garden, then guess what we're not doing when we're spending time in the garden working? We're not spending any money anywhere else.
Mm,
You're not
mhm,
going to the mall, you're not going
mhm,
shopping for,
mhm,
the new whatever, I don't know, new Jordans or, whatever. You're focusing on that. You're improving your health.
mhm,
Possibly if you're taking and you're eating the healthy food, that health cost could potentially come down. So,
mhm,
I want to be very clear about this though. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're going to get healthier by working in the garden. There's a lot of factors that you got to meet, but that could possibly be one of the positive outcomes of it. So across the board, there's a lot of things that can help lower your overall costs.
mhm, mhm.
But then if you get to the dollar and cents of it, all right, back
Before
to
we get
you.
to the dollars and cents of it, one more comment around satisfaction. So you oftentimes tell the stories around like when you all look at your dinner plates, your family looks at your dinner plates, and how so much of it is made up from what you've harvested from the garden. And you tell the story in the dollars and cents savings. I look at this story and say the satisfaction from what you've been able to provide for your family. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless
Not
you.
cry. Not yet. If I'm teary eyed, it's because of the sneezing. That's the way I hear it. And I know you well enough to know if you went to the grocery store to buy those things and here you are serving it up to your family, the sense of pride that you tell that story with is not the same. And I think that again, we oftentimes underestimate the kind of the non what's the term? The non the tactile pieces of it. Like you can't feel the dollar, the cents, right? Like, but there's still the satisfaction. And now I'm willing to move forward. Don't pull me back in.
Yeah, I mean, there is there's absolutely a satisfaction of like this is what we've produced, and it's a lesson for my son, so he can kind of get a grasp on it.
Hmm.
But in the past year, it's been like that feeling is 90% of like, hey, this meal cost us $3 for the whole family to
Hmm.
eat. Just so you know, like that's what it went in financially into this. Because then we'll go to a restaurant and it's like $70 for a meal or something stupid like that. And we're like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like we've
Well,
literally,
you have to fold in the experience. So that's what a lot of people are willing to spend money on. Now let me tell you something else though. There's something to be said about things that are overpriced. Period. No matter what your sales paper has as the price point, when you think about the cost of that head of cabbage to you in your garden, like I'm not going to use the word cheap, but we can eat really well for far less than what most, I'd say, Americans are going to spend to bring food into their house. Now, that in my mind, dollars and cents, that's all I'm talking about. Like the take a 10-year period over your garden, because that allows kind of for things that upfront cost to level out. If you're consistently gardening, even if you have the same footprint, you are going to, in my view, spend less money, dollars and cents, on this kind of produce than you would if you were going to the store. And arguably, even if you spent the exact same money, we know that you'd get less if you're spending the exact same money at the store compared to what you spend on your garden. Very
yeah.
clearly.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny in the beginning of the episode, you talked about your first garden and how there wasn't much of an investment.
Hmm.
But then the investment went up, right? And so
Yeah, it did.
that's what we need to talk about now because
Yeah.
I think across the board, and we've often said on this show like you can get into gardening rather affordable, right?
Affordably. Yeah.
Affordably, I mean whatever, my English isn't great. It is my first language, I do promise. But if you think about that and it's like I just told you about my drip system I put in, like that was a tough pill to
Hmm.
swallow.
Hmm.
And I sat back and I analyzed it for probably close to 2 months, 60 days, and really thought about like what are the financial benefits of doing this? Like how am I, my garden, my family going to financially come out on top for this project that we're going to do? And I remember, do you remember when I I think it was like 2021. I had to replace the wood around my bed, all
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
beds, and man, I mean that was like $300. And then I
Hmm.
added more, and so that was another
Hmm.
roughly $300. I'm like, geez, So the first year I did it, I used untreated wood, and it rotted, just basically rotted the day I put it in. And so once we got through, and I ran it until I couldn't run it anymore, and then we
Yeah.
replaced it. But as those costs add up, a number of things were occurring at the exact same time. So, yes, I did spend that money on the garden and I do continuously spend money in that garden, but at the same time, my knowledge is expanding. I'm learning more. And
Hmm.
not only am I doing that, but now I'm getting to the point where I'm able to produce bigger harvests off of smaller crops, smaller space. So
Hmm.
I'm getting more efficient in my gardening now. So that's like my one of my overarching goals that I don't ever really say in our goals episode, but like efficiency is king. And that can mean a lot of things. It can be producing a bigger head of cabbage. I mean, look, y'all, if you were here for the 18th century doorknob era, we're up to 20th century now. So, we're
Just
going
barely.
in the
No, I'm
right
joking.
direction. Yeah. No. But, and it's like my Brussels sprouts, right? So my
Hmm.
Brussels sprouts have been fail, 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 fail. Each fail is a year, then win. And then this year, Papa Bear's got some big ass Brussels sprouts. So now I'm starting to figure that out, right? So we're starting to kind of, it snowballs. And so, yeah, we did put money in there, but we also sat back and looked at it from a budget, and I set strict limits across the board on everything, and it's all helped out. So that drip system helped out because I got healthier plants, I got bigger plants, more
Mhm.
efficient fertilizing, and there's probably another benefit I don't know about, but all of those, and probably a lower water bill. I mean, look, I saw a hell of a savings when I fixed my toilet finally that was leaking for a couple of years. $40 a month I saved. What?
Mm.
So, all of that stuff kind of adds up, minus the toilet. But you start putting all that in, and you start to see the overarching picture. And we are going to have to bring up the $100 tomato because it's a true thing that occurs. And there's a way to beat all of that. And we just have to figure that out. And then your savings will start to go up more and more and more.
See, I think we have to be honest in this dialogue because not only is there the $100 tomato, there's also the hard cost of mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And in many cases, I learn from the mistake, and so I'm able kinda to justify whatever that hard cost was. Um, but in some cases, you are literally costing yourself money based on, kind of knowing better but still doing the wrong thing, based on not investigating and or researching. Like, these are things that I believe that if everyone tracked dollar for dollar what they spent for their gardens compared to the things they harvest from their gardens and estimating what that is valued at, I believe that we'd make smarter decisions around our gardens, right? But while that's happening in some places, I'd probably say the majority of us don't. When you think about that $300 and that $300, I'm like, $300, that's big money. You say year one, year two, I look at this and say, well, shoot, how many times have I replaced this? I look at something like the cage baby is a great example of it's, and I was trying to track back to how much I paid for that and maybe, maybe past Batavia is protecting future Batavia's memory from that. I can't quite put my finger on it. I have a roundabout estimate, but that was for the goal of growing tomatoes all the time. And I've since moved on from that. Still have, obviously, it's still the same planting space, so I still have use for it. But would I consider that a mistake? No. But would I consider that an expense that was required for my garden? No. Like, I have to work my butt off when it comes to collards and peppers and tomatoes to pay off that investment.